My beloved child, from a very young age you were taught that blessing was like a medal that only appears when enough hands applaud, when enough eyes smile in approval and declare that you are worthy. You learned to look toward the faces around you to measure whether you were blessed on any given day, as though every compliment and every gesture of favor were a seal from heaven. Yet I want you to stop and look deeper. There are days when no one remembers you, when no one speaks your name, when no one stands up for you, and yet within you lies a quiet peace that you cannot explain. It is there that you draw near to the truth. Blessing is not human preference bestowed upon you, but the result of standing in the place I have led you to. When I position you somewhere, it is not for you to perform, but for you to belong, to remain in my will. And when you stand in that very place, blessing is not an external noise, but a profound alignment between your soul and my plan, as it is written of the Holy One, the True One, the one who opens a door no one can shut and shuts a door no one can open. I want you to understand that no earthly hand can grant or revoke what I have ordained for you. Applause rises and fades. Gazes change with the seasons. But the door I open out of love for you remains, untouched by any judgment spoken against you. You are called to see blessing not as a prize, but as a door I quietly open before you. When you rely on the eyes of others to measure blessing, you will always live in fear that the moment they turn away, your life will collapse. You will try to bend yourself to meet the expectations of every crowd and every circumstance, like a thin leaf forever twisting with the wind, and your soul will grow weary from acting out roles that do not belong to you. I do not blame you for this, for the world has taught you that blessing is prominence, high position, and public recognition. But I have come to teach you a different language. Your blessing is not granted by others. It is opened by me through doors no hand can shut. When you begin to believe this, you will no longer be frantic at praise or criticism, because you will understand that they are only passing echoes, not eternal verdicts. You will gradually learn to ask a different question, Lord. Where am I standing in your will rather than what do people think of me? And when that question becomes the center of your heart, you will realize there are places I call you into that appear small, humble, even despised in the eyes of man. Yet they are doors wide open in heaven. Blessing, then, is not about being seen, but about being rightly placed, not about being lifted by the hands of people, but being anchored in my hands, and that changes the entire way you walk through each day. My child, I know there are seasons when you are caught in the center of storms made of accusation, misunderstanding, and jealousy, to the point that you begin to wonder whether your blessing has been stripped away, when your name is dragged through the mud, when your motives are distorted, when those who once praised you become the first to turn away. You easily think that everything I promised you has shattered, yet it is precisely in those seasons that I am showing you something deeper. Blessing is not stained simply because others speak falsely about you. Blessing is not measured by reputation, but by the fact that you still remain in me. When you are pushed from positions that people once gave you, you think you have fallen from safety, but in truth I am removing you from doors I never opened for you. I allow false doors to close so you no longer confuse the temporary corridors of man with the doors that belong to the kingdom. There are opportunities that look like blessing but are nothing more than tests, and there are losses that look like failure but are in truth protection. When you keep your heart in peace, without retaliation, without striving to prove yourself, you are allowing me to fight for you and vindicate you. In those moments, blessing is not having every misunderstanding cleared immediately, but preserving the purity of your heart in the middle of the storm. I want you to begin looking back upon your journey as one looks upon doors. There were doors you pleaded to enter, and when they opened you believed them to be the greatest gifts. Yet inside you found expectations that suffocated your soul, praise tied to control, agreements that slowly sold off your peace. There were other doors you never asked for, doors you even feared, because they led into quiet seasons with little visibility, few compliments, little external light. But they were the places where your heart was healed and learned to walk close to me. It was there that you slowly understood the one mark every door of mine carries. It does not promise comfort, but it always leads you deeper into truth, into freedom, and into your true identity in me. When you stand before a new threshold, I do not ask whether you possess enough skill. I ask, are you willing to let me lead you? Blessing cannot be separated from that willingness. It does not come from how tightly you grip the doorknob, but from allowing me to take your hand and walk through with you. And when you accept the closing of doors I did not open, even with tears, you honor my plan above the desires of people. My child, what I am building within you is not a life that will never be rejected, but a heart no longer shattered at its core by rejection. When you understand that blessing is a door from my hand, you will no longer collapse simply because a group of people do not approve of you. You may feel sadness. You may feel pain. You may shed tears when you are misunderstood. But you will no longer lose yourself clinging to places where I have whispered, "It is enough." You will learn to step away from relationships, environments, and expectations you held onto because they made you feel valued, yet no longer reflected my will. Instead, you will learn to take quiet but faithful steps toward what I call you to a hidden work, a prayer unseen by anyone, a kind act that receives no acknowledgement, an obedience that seems unnoticed. It is these quiet footsteps that are leading you through eternal doors. Blessing is no longer the question, what do I receive? But the answer, where am I standing in relation to you? And when the answer is, I am in your hands, your soul will find a firmness no storm can touch. There are souls who grow up beneath the applause of the world until they mistake that noise for their own heartbeat. And when the praise fades, they panic, as though the breath has been taken from their lungs. Blessing seen through human eyes always carries conditions. They love you when you serve their desires, and they turn away when you are no longer useful to them. You remember the days you sat waiting for someone to affirm your worth, like a child waiting for an approving glance to know they are not invisible. When praise arrived, you felt lifted, and when it disappeared, you plunged into the depths of doubt, losing control within your own heart. Blessing through the lens of man is always held in the hands of whoever has the power to judge, causing the soul to shrink in fear of loss. I did not create you to be a mirror reflecting their greed and habit of evaluation. I created you to become light itself, not dependent on anyone's hand to be lit. Freedom does not come when you are praised. It comes when you are grateful for the blessing I give without needing validation from the world. And once you realize that blessing belongs to me, no one can take it from you with contemptuous stares or indifferent silence. A soul dependent on people is often drawn toward artificial light. It is dazzling, hurried, and borrowed from the radiance of others. That light does not nourish the soul. It only makes you temporarily forget the emptiness within. Praise may sound like a stream of cool water, but when it dries up, your thirst returns more fiercely than before, as though your heart has never known a real source of water. When you allow people to define blessing, you unknowingly place their hands on the steering wheel of your heart, and they drive you in the direction they need, not the direction you belong to. I know there were times you believed that if you were good enough, patient enough, sacrificial enough, they would eventually recognize your worth. But worth built upon what they see will always tremble when their gaze shifts. They cannot keep you in freedom because they themselves are not free. They chase after the satisfaction of their ego. And when you no longer give them what they want, you become the mirror they wish to shatter, to avoid facing their own emptiness. You are not a child running after someone holding a candy high above you. You are one I have placed in the position of wholeness, where blessing is not borrowed but given, because I know you must grow in the intention I designed for you. When the soul learns to see blessing through me, it begins to escape the demands of the world, not by fighting the world, but by ceasing to treat it as the source of life. I open doors not so you may walk into an easy path, but so you may realize that what I give does not depend on the fragile emotions of human beings. There are doors I open that no one understands, like a seed sprouting in dry soil, not because the soil is good, but because I placed life within it. When I bless, I do not ask for human approval. They may look down on you, doubt you, dismiss you, and I still make a way because you belong to my intention, not to their narrow vision. That freedom is not arrogance. It is the gentle breath of a soul that knows it does not need to beg for recognition in order to exist. Some will call your blessing luck. Some will call it coincidence. Some will deny it because they do not want to see you go further than they have. But blessing through me needs no explanation, because it is not an event, it is a flow. And when you stand in the place I lead, that flow will not be interrupted. Spiritual freedom does not lie in separating yourself from the world, but in refusing to let the world decide how you see yourself. I do not love you by the standard of deserving. I love you by my nature, and the blessing I give reflects that love, not your perfection. When you place blessing in the hands of people, you will always have to sacrifice a part of yourself in exchange for what they give. They want you to bow, shrink, and trim away your identity so that you fit neatly into the mold they have already built. I do not want you to become a flawed replica of them. I want you to become the full expression of yourself in my sight. What makes a soul free is not confidence, but the understanding that blessing from me cannot be stolen, cannot be traded, and cannot be defiled. I know you have trembled as you stepped away from the place they expected you to stay, like a young bird taking flight for the first time outside the cage. But my blessing is not in that cage. It is in the sky to which I have called your name. A soul that sees blessing through me no longer fears being misunderstood, because it understands that blessing is not a reward, it is an invitation. You do not come to me to ask for what people approve of. You come to me to enter a life that will not be imprisoned by their small dreams. I did not create you to please public opinion, for public opinion exists like ripples on the surface of a lake, shimmering and disappearing when the wind passes by. You were formed to carry the glory of my intention. And when you walk according to that intention, blessing arrives as a seal from heaven, not as a ticket handed to you by the world. When the soul sees this, it no longer asks, do they acknowledge me, but rather, am I standing where you placed me? And when the question changes, the rhythm of your life changes from tension to peace, from the craving for approval to the joy of belonging. Blessing is not a badge for you to display before the world like a medal. It is the space I open so you may feel peace that does not depend on a single gaze. You once thought blessing could only be trusted when witnessed, when every eye turned and acknowledged what you received. But that was only the echo of years when your soul was still small, still afraid of being left behind. I bless you even before people know your name, because true blessing needs no audience. My presence is not a stage, but a shelter, the place where you learn to breathe slower, walk gently, and stop asking what others think of you. There are blessings I place in you quietly like underground streams, so you may understand that what comes from me does not need to be seen to be real. The world loves display because it fears emptiness. I do not display because I am never empty. When my blessing nourishes your soul, you begin to be grateful in silence, realizing that inner stability matters more than all the noise outside. When you walk into blessing without an inner foundation, You will use that blessing to buy the approval of others, and your soul will become a hostage to their gaze. I have seen many souls who thought they were being lifted up, when in truth, they were only standing on scaffolding built from the expectations of others. And when that scaffolding collapses, they panic not because they lost blessing, but because they lost an audience. I do not bless you so you may live in fear of protecting your image. I bless you so you may stand naturally in my light without decorating your soul. People may applaud your success and turn away from your failure, but my blessing does not turn its face from you when you stumble. It is the garment I place upon you so you may know that though the seasons outside change, you remain safe in my hand. You do not need to invoke human approval to validate what I have done. Your peace is the testimony. Living in my presence is learning to align the beat of your heart with a source that does not require noise for confirmation. Blessing does not exist to make you more noticeable, but to make you more grounded. There are gifts of grace I give that only you will know, not because I want to hide them, but because I want you to be healed in places no one can tear open. My blessing is sometimes quiet like the morning before anyone wakes, but that quiet is gentleness, not absence. When you walk in my presence, your heart gradually stops trembling before the eyes of the world, because it understands that true blessing is not a position to be seen, but a place where the soul can rest. Approval cannot sustain you through the night, but my presence can carry you through an entire storm without losing yourself. I do not ask you to prove blessing with results. I ask you to receive it with the honesty of one no longer trying to control their journey through fear. There are blessings I give that the world calls small, like a door opening when you are exhausted, or a moment when you glimpse light in the night of your inner storm. They do not call that blessing because they only count victories that blaze, cheers that roar, milestones wrapped in noise. But I measure blessing by how it makes you steady, not by how it forces others to acknowledge you. Blessing teaches you how to rise after you fall, not blessing that makes the world apologize to you. Blessing teaches you to keep walking when the words around you are only doubt, not blessing that makes others fear you. You do not need to use my grace to prove your capability, because grace does not exist to strengthen the ego, it exists to lighten the heart. When you learn to stand in my blessing without trembling, you also learn not to cling to anyone to be loved, not to trade your identity to be praised, and not to force your soul to prove what it already knows is true. It is precisely when you stop seeking approval that my blessing begins to grow in you like roots sinking deeper. Roots do not need applause to pierce the soil, they only need a safe place. My presence is that soil. A mature soul is not a soul that conquers the opinions of others, but a soul that knows how to live among them without letting them become the center. I want you to learn to see blessing not as a key to unlock the hearts of other people, but as a guarantee that I am near. When you allow blessing to lead you rather than drag you toward the gaze of the crowd, you begin to realize that peace is no longer a rare gift, but a constant rhythm of breath. And when you live in that rhythm, you will no longer tremble even when no one stands to defend you, because I have already placed the defense within the core of who you are. Some look at blessing as a random event, like a gift falling from the sky without warning, and they call it luck. But luck is a concept of the world, dependent on chance, probability, and the fluctuations of human opinions. The blessing I give does not come from randomness. It arrives when you step into the position I lead you to, even if you have not yet understood why those small steps open such large doors. Blessing is not an accidental advantage that falls into the hands of those who seize the moment, but the resonance between the intention I have had since the beginning and the readiness of your soul when you let go of your calculations, like a river that flows along its own bed not because someone removed every stone, but because it simply seeks its natural low ground. Blessing also flows toward you when your heart seeks the place of humility before me. Some souls ask me, why do others receive it while I do not? But they do not know that I do not bless as one distributes handouts. I bless as one who sows seeds and waits for the season. You do not need to compete. You do not need to chase, only to walk in, step. For blessing does not arrive through grasping, but through alignment. When the soul lives in my will, blessing no longer feels like a reward, but like the steady heartbeat of one breathing with my breath. You do not need to worry whether you are worthy, because blessing is not payment for effort. It comes when the heart no longer tries to assert itself by comparison with others. The rhythm of the world is always short of breath, sometimes frantic, sometimes suffocating because they breathe through fear of missing out, while the rhythm of life in me is a stillness that needs no justification. Blessing only has meaning when it places you exactly where you belong, not where you force yourself to climb so that others might consider you valuable. Many souls believe blessing is a matter of seizing opportunities, but an opportunity cannot carry you far if it does not lie within my intention. You see people arguing, competing, and scrambling for a position to be remembered. I use you in a quieter way. I place you where the very earth beneath has softened to receive your steps, not because you are more talented than they are, but because that place was prepared for you long before you were anxious about where you were going. Some call blessing an appointment with fortune, but fortune has no memory. It comes and goes, leaving the soul bewildered, like someone waking in the middle of the night. But my blessing has memory, purpose, and rhythm. I place it at the right moment when you can carry it without losing yourself. Like the sower who knows which rains come from heaven and which are only false clouds. I do not allow blessing to arrive before you know how to tend it. For if blessing comes before the soul matures, it becomes a burden. You will guard it with panic instead of peace. I do not want you to tremble when I bless you. I want you to understand that blessing is my voice saying, you are walking rightly, not the crowd's applause saying, you are better than others. When your heart learns to listen to me instead of the noise of public judgment, blessing becomes inward confirmation, not a medal you must hold up for all to see. If blessing were only the outcome of luck, the soul would have to live in fear of losing it, because luck is unstable. But blessing in me has roots. It grows downward as much as it grows upward. I do not place glory in your hands like fragile material. I place it in the deep layers where neither praise nor criticism can distort it. When you walk in rhythm, blessing does not create a sense of competition. It creates a sense of returning home. The world cannot understand such blessing, for they measure by gain, while I measure by alignment with my intention. That alignment is not a mystical coincidence. It is harmony. My will flows down. Your soul opens up, and the space between the two disappears like still water after the wind has passed. Not every blessing is loud. Some are like the sound of quiet footsteps on the earth, moving you further than you imagined without drawing attention. When you understand blessing as alignment, you no longer view your life as a series of wagers. You do not ask, will I be lucky this time, but ask, am I walking with His breath? And when the question changes, your soul changes as well, from one who hunts to one who receives, from one who waits for fortune to one who recognizes my hand. The freedom you seek does not lie in outshining others, but in harmonizing with my intention within you. You do not need to chase blessing like a shadow fleeing the sun. The light is in me, and when you are in me, blessing is in you. Some think blessing is a reward given after they win someone's favor, when they behave skillfully, receive praise, applause, or a seat among the names deemed worthy. But the blessing I give does not depend on such approval. It does not come from the hands of the powerful, nor does it fall from the lips of those who admire. Blessing is a space I establish, a spiritual ground where you can breathe without being measured, People may see you as small among them, but in my space you are expanded by peace, not by display. You see souls changing colors under the gaze of others, but I want you to be like a tree drawing sap from the soil rather than from the noise outside. The space of blessing I build does not look at where people have placed you, but at where I intend to take you. Peace is the atmosphere of that space of blessing, and it is nothing like the reluctant silence the world calls stability. Some try to control peace by engineering every situation, by removing those who disturb them, by wishing they could bind the mouths of their critics. But the peace I give is not built on human arrangements. It does not depend on circumstances, does not wither under misunderstanding, and does not break under betrayal. My peace is like the light threading through a deep forest. It needs no one to clear the path. It only needs the moment it arrives. John 1:4-7 says, "The peace I give is not as the world gives," because the world needs conditions, while I need only a heart that knows how to return. When you know where you belong, you no longer need to fight for position or prove yourself. You stand within my domain, and that stillness becomes your covering. There are souls who wonder why the blessings I grant do not always appear as dazzling success or promotions that stir admiration among people. It is because they have yet to understand that blessing is not a stage, but soil. It is not designed to be gazed upon, but to anchor a soul in its roots. The garden I tend does not sit within fences built by men, for human fences know only how to categorize those who shine, stand inside. Those who hesitate stand outside. But the blessing I establish does not sort in that manner. It accepts weak sprouts, broken branches, and turns them into testimonies of beginning. In that garden, I do not ask you why you broke. I ask whether you are willing to grow again. People look at you through the history of your failures, but I see you through the potential of your resurrection. For the space of blessing is where I sow again what you once believed had died. Those who know only how to bestow blessings with their lips will take them back with their lips. They praise in order to control. They give in order to bind. They offer opportunities to test whether you will bend yourself to their expectations. And when you no longer fit what they desire, they retract their blessings like a debt. But the blessing from me does not behave like that, because I do not give in order to reclaim. I give in order to train. I lead you into a space where silence itself is vast enough for you to hear your heartbeat according to my rhythm. In the space of blessing, you do not need to conquer anyone. You only need to learn how to stand in peace. I do not lead you to behold glory before you behold your roots. For glory cannot sustain a soul, only roots can sustain a soul. Some souls step into my blessing and feel lonely, thinking I have placed them in a barren land. But that loneliness is not the absence of people, it is the absence of noise. I remove you from the crowd so you no longer have to live through their eyes. I bring you to a place where you only need to live through mine. The world may not understand it. They think blessing is a lively place, full of benefits and excitement. But I know every depth of your soul, and I choose the space of blessing the way a potter chooses a kiln, not to destroy, but to shape. When you grow in the peace I give, you no longer need the approval of people. You simply keep walking, for that blessing has already begun to bloom from within. There was a time when you viewed favor as a scarce seat at life's banquet. Whoever sits is safe. Whoever stands outside is lost. You mistook blessing for distribution, for a divided portion that shrinks if another receives more. I saw your soul weary from scanning the eyes of others, always afraid of lack, always trying to prove your worth. But when you realize that blessing comes from me, you understand that no hand can close a door I have opened, and no gaze can diminish what I have ordained. Human favor only has power if you need them to survive. But the blessing from me stands firm, even when every word of praise has gone silent. Spiritual freedom begins when the soul no longer asks, "What do others have?" but quietly recognizes, "What am I doing upon you?" In that moment, you stop comparing, because you know blessing is not distributed by the number of seats, but opened by the number of paths I design for each soul. Without competition, your soul begins to see the success of others not as a threat, but as evidence that I am still working within humanity. In the past, each time someone else was blessed, you believed you were being left behind, as if I had turned my heart away from you. But blessing does not operate by substitution. It is not like a coat that only one person may wear. When I bless another, I do not take from you. I simply sow upon the soil suitable for their season. There is a rainy season for them, and a sunny season for you, and both are necessary so that the world does not become a desert. That understanding liberates you from silent envy, from the fear of being overshadowed, from the invisible call to constantly prove yourself. People may fight on the steps of reputation, but your soul knows that my blessing is not bound by their limits. It is bound by the depth to which your heart is ready to receive. Spiritual freedom is not you standing apart from the world in rejection, but you standing within me in alignment. When you understand blessing, you do not need to withdraw from the crowd. You simply refuse to let the crowd define you. I do not ask you to run from recognition, but I want you to stand in the inner strength that comes from me, so you do not depend on it. Human favor is like shifting wind when it is favorable. It presses you forward. When it turns, it knocks you down. But the blessing I grant is like an underground stream, unseen. Yet it soaks into the roots of the soul, nourishing every cell of faith, helping you stand firm even when the surface is dry. When you no longer need to claim anyone's place, you can finally see yourself as I see you, a soul moved not by competition, but by my calling. Some will ask you, "Then what about fairness? Why are others given priority while you are forgotten?" But you will see that I do not operate in fairness as the world defines it. For that fairness always requires losers in order to have winners. I operate within right timing, within the harmony of the journey I am shaping. Others may move faster, may be praised sooner, may walk into rooms you once dreamed of. But none of that diminishes the blessing I set aside for you. There are doors that opened when you were not yet ready. I kept them closed not to punish you, but to protect your soul from the storms of outside expectations. I do not bless you to throw you into danger, but to place you at the depth where your roots can withstand the wind. When you step into spiritual freedom, you no longer see people as rivals, but as mirrors reflecting diverse forms of grace I am working through. Some will be sent to reveal my power through public display. Others will be held in quiet to testify through enduring faithfulness. You do not need to understand their roles in order to accept your own. That freedom does not come from surpassing them, but from recognizing that your blessing is not weighed on a communal scale. It rests in my hand, and that hand has never trembled. When your soul stands in this truth, you can smile at the lights that shine on others without feeling your own dim, because you know that the light meant for you will come in its season, in its manner. Along the path I open, there were years when you believed blessing was a reward for efforts that pleased others, as if every smile given would return a piece of approval, and every gesture of kindness would secure a place in their hearts. But value does not function that way. Value does not arise from human reactions, but from the source of life I placed within your soul from the beginning. When you grow weary from trying to become a version acceptable to human eyes, you lose the authenticity I wove into your being. I did not create you to be a mirror of others' expectations. I created you to reflect my light in every season. Blessing does not arrive to reinforce pretense, but to strengthen essence. A soul standing in the identity I grant does not tremble when neglected, because it does not live on the warmth of temporary approval, but on the breath that comes from me alone. When you walk within the blessing I have opened, you will see that outward applause is merely like the sound of wind brushing against the eaves, sometimes loud, sometimes quiet. Yet it never alters the structure of the house. People may not understand you. They may tell you that you are not enough. They may claim that you are not in the right moment. But those judgments only touch the surface and will never reach the depth I have placed within you. Spiritual identity is not formed by what you do, but by the one who declares who you are. A tree planted by my hand does not need every gaze to confirm that it is growing. It only needs the sun, the water, and the soil. And these have already been provided by my providence, laid along the path of your life. When you stand in that identity, you no longer ask, "What do others think?" but "Where am I being led by you?" That shift in question is the doorway through which true freedom enters, where your soul stands firm in the identity I have given. Blessing becomes a stream rather than a rare gift. You do not have to beg. You do not have to earn affection. You do not have to prove that you are worthy of what you are living. The beauty of blessing is not found in clutching it tightly so others may see, but in allowing it to seep into every fiber of your soul like sap flowing through a tree. Just as the roots hidden deep beneath the earth do not flaunt themselves, yet they nourish the trunk and keep the tree standing through storms. The true blessing from me moves in silence, yet pushes your soul toward fullness. People may argue about evidence of blessing, but I do not bless so it may be proven. I bless so that you may walk in rhythm with me without needing anyone's permission for it. There will be times when you enter environments where success is defined by visibility and numbers, where worth is measured by applause, where kindness is seen as weakness if it does not generate advantage. In such places, you may easily feel lost if you have not understood your identity. But do not fear. I did not place you in this world to satisfy standards that shift like currents of wind. I placed you here to become proof that spiritual value is not governed by visible scales. The blessing I give does not make you boastful before others, it makes you still before me. You do not need to raise yourself up, you only need to stand in the position I lead you to. And it is precisely that stillness which will cause blessing to become something others must learn from, not something you must explain. Then there will come a moment when you look back and realize that the things which once frightened you, the silence of others, misunderstanding, indifference, are no longer threats. For when identity has been sealed by my hand, you no longer need praise to know you have value, nor rejection to know you have been wounded. You will walk in the gentleness of a soul that has learned to belong. Blessing will no longer be a dream you chase, but the breath you carry with every step. I do not want you merely to succeed. I want you to understand why you were created. And when you understand that, blessing will no longer be a destination, it will become a way of life within me. There are times when you believe disappointment comes from circumstances, from the silence of others, from their inability to see your effort. But true disappointment is not an arrow shot from outside. It is an inner door you open when you hand the key of your value to a hand that was never strong enough to hold it. I see how many times you wished for others to understand you, to acknowledge you, to affirm what you are striving for. That waiting wears your soul down, not because you are weak, but because you have placed your hope in a place that was never designed to sustain hope. People may praise you for a moment, then fall silent at another. They may believe in you today and doubt you tomorrow. Their fluctuation is not your sentence, it simply reveals their limitation. When you allow compliments to elevate your worth, you also grant criticism the power to lower it. Disappointment may feel like a sudden fall, but in truth, it is the result of a long decline. You have turned your heart toward the eyes of people instead of toward me. Others were not born to read the depth of your soul, they only see the surface you show. And when you expect them to understand what only I have witnessed, the silent choices, the private sacrifices, the nights you rose in darkness unseen. You place upon them a responsibility they were never capable of bearing. The disappointment is not because they are cruel, but because you have forgotten the only place that can hold you without losing you. Only when you take back the authority over your worth from the hands of people does the soul begin to heal. This does not mean you reject their presence or withdraw from the relationships in which you live. It simply means you place the foundation of your spiritual self upon a rock more steadfast. I did not carve your name into the walls of someone else's house. I carved it into the palm of my hand. I did not wait for a council of humans to determine whether you deserve love. I did not ask the world whether you are good enough. I knew you from the moment you did not yet know yourself. And there, at that beginning, your value was neither coerced, nor bargained, nor altered. There are souls who live their entire lives in disappointment because they believe blessing is a reward granted by surrounding eyes. But blessing does not validate ability, it validates belonging. People may see you in triumph or in defeat, but I see you in the journey. I do not look only at the outcome. I see every time you tried to stand when no one was there. Every time you chose gentleness instead of retaliation. Every time you were faithful in the small things without praise. These are the moments that form the foundation of blessing, and they do not require applause to be real. If you place your value in the hands of people, you will have to carry your soul like fragile merchandise, always fearing it will be dropped. But if you place your value in me, your soul will become land with roots, and no one can uproot it with a word, a glance, or a season of trial. And when disappointment arrives, you will no longer ask, "Why did they do this to me?" But you will understand that the pain did not come from their actions, it came from the expectations you placed upon them. When you remove expectation from human hands and return it to me, disappointment does not disappear because the world becomes kinder, but because your soul has learned to stand before me without trembling. There are moments when you come to prayer as if seeking an escape from exhaustion. Yet in those moments your soul does not realize that what it truly needs is not an explanation, but a place to lay its burdens down. I do not expect you to come to me in perfection. I only expect you to come. You do not need to gather strength to stand before me, because strength is not found in what you carry, but in knowing you can set everything down before me. Prayer is not the labor of a heart trying to prove that it is enough. It is the breathing of a soul that knows it needs to be held. When you speak to me, you do not need the perfect words. You do not need to rearrange your fragmented thoughts. You do not need to justify why you are weak. I already knew these things before you opened your mouth. There is an old story, not dazzling like a miracle, not resounding like a war. Jesus entered a village and met Mary, the sister of Lazarus. When she heard that her brother had died, she did not recite an eloquent prayer. She did not list tragic reasons. She did not appeal to any theological understanding. She simply cried out, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." It was not a beautiful prayer, but it was true. It proved nothing about her ability, but it revealed the fragility of her heart. And in that very fragility, my power moved. I did not need her to stand strong. I needed her to look to me. When her tears fell, I did not demand that she correct every sentence or rearrange every argument. I came near. I listened, and I brought life back to the place that death had touched. Prayer did not bring Lazarus back to life. The fragile faith placed in me opened the door for my power to enter. When you remember that story, you will understand that prayer is not a polished ring set with gemstones to be displayed. It is a heavy key placed in your hand to open doors you cannot turn on your own. The world will expect you to be strong. They will want you to stand up, to be resilient, to not be weak. But I did not come to reward those who are skilled at defending themselves. I came for souls who no longer know what to do except call my name. When you run to me, not in perfection but in deficiency, Your soul is facing the right direction. You do not search for strength in your own effort, but in the one who can lift you in every season. That is the movement of faith. You no longer strive to be enough. You begin to believe that I am enough. There are days when your words blend with tears, nights when your prayers shrink to broken breaths. I do not despise that. I do not require you to know how to name every pain. I only desire that you turn your face toward me. When your soul is pressed against a wall, the greatest truth is not you are weak, but I have not abandoned you. Spiritual strength does not rise from coercion, but from trust. And that trust does not require you to understand everything. It simply asks that you step forward, just as Mary did not know what I would do, did not know by what means life could return. Yet she still called for me. So when you pray, you are doing the same. You do not use logic to drag miracles down to earth. You entrust yourself to me so light can pass through the shadows you carry. This is why prayer is never the display of weakness as the world believes. It is the soul's most courageous act, admitting that true strength does not lie in blood, intellect, or endurance, but in surrender. You may stand tall before people, but only when you bow before me do you become truly strong. Not because I want you small, but because you will never find real peace by tightening your grip on everything. I do not want you to prove that you need no one. I want you to understand that you were never designed to walk alone. When you speak to me, you are not merely asking, you are returning home. In that return, blessing begins to sprout. There are seasons in your life when everything seems to stand still, as though all your prayers strike a silent wall, as though you have knocked hard enough, but the door remains unmoved. You have asked me why and have assumed that delay is the sign of my turning away. But that silence is not an abandoned void. It is a field where I refine your soul before blessing blooms. A seed does not enter spring simply because it desires to. It must endure winter so its roots can reach deeper into the earth. If I open the door before the roots have anchored, blessing will become a storm. I am not slow. I am protecting you from the shallowness of unripe desires. When you do not understand my timing, outward delay becomes an inner wound. For you think every prayer has been ignored. But preparation is not always radiant. It often moves quietly like the sky before dawn. The sun has not yet risen and you think night still prevails. But the pale blue at the horizon already signals a shift that hurried eyes do not notice. I work before you see results, just as light breaks the darkness a little at a time. You do not need to see the first ray to believe it is coming. You only need to remember that I have never stopped governing the sky. There are doors that seem to open early to help you breathe easier. But I know that if I open them when you want, you will enter with a heart too shallow to endure the waves. People often think blessing is immediate convenience, the moment you reach what you have long desired. But blessing is not a reward. It is a dimension I created for you to live rightly. If a house has no foundation, the first wind will tear off its roof. If a soul has no roots, the first compliment will make you arrogant, and the first criticism will break you. I do not deny your desires. I make you capable of carrying the very things you ask for. You have seen others enter their season earlier than you, and your heart trembled with the question, why them, and not me? But the timing of blessing is not a race. I lead each soul along its own path, and the preparation I give you is not the preparation I give them. Some are lifted to learn humility. Some are held back to learn stability. Some are given light to guide others. Some are given darkness to learn trust in silence. No one goes the wrong way when they walk in me, even when their path lacks lamps. And then, at a certain moment, the door opens, not because you have knocked hard enough, but because you have become peaceful enough to walk through it without carrying fear. I do not want you to reach the destination by rushing. I want you to enter as one who knows they belong there. Blessing at the right time does not simply give you what you prayed for, it gives you a heart capable of holding it, living with it, and not losing yourself because of it. When you look back, you will understand that the delay was not a time of loss, but the season in which I laid the foundation of your soul. It did not punish you, it prepared you. There are moments when you stand before a radiant door built out of human expectation, where you believe that stepping through it will erase every lack and silence every word that once wounded you. You beg me to open it, convinced it is the most reasonable way to free you from delay, but I do not touch the handle, not because I have forgotten you, but because I know the door you have chosen would only burden a heart already tired. I do not grant blessing to satisfy your curiosity. I grant blessing to position you in a depth of peace you cannot create on your own. There are doors I open that surprise you with their simplicity, not under stage lights, without applause, carrying only a quietness that helps you realize blessing does not live in noise, it lives in my presence. I do not lead the soul to the heights through paved roads crowded with people, marked with the footsteps of those who once passed by to boast of their achievements. I lead you through narrow paths, sometimes overgrown with wild grass, where people do not bother to look because they cannot perceive the value of silence. The small trail that leads to the spring needs no sign to prove its worth, for anyone who pauses there will find water. In the same way, my blessing does not require you to compete for position. It requires you to recognize the moment I move. You will not immediately understand why I close one door and open another less impressive, less noisy. But when you move forward in trust, you will know that I choose the quiet path not to humble you, but to preserve your soul from being consumed by the gaze of the world. When you insist on planning and calculating, you believe the future depends on your preparation, and that as long as you are diligent enough, intelligent enough, determined enough, everything will bend to your will. But blessing is not generated by your skill in arrangement. Blessing arises from the moment you remove your hand from the steering wheel and allow me to operate. The one who sows the seed has sown into the soil and then sleeps, and the seed grows in silence. He does not know how. Mark 4:27. This is not the laziness of the soul, but the acknowledgement that there are spiritual operations beyond your ability to comprehend. You do your part, and I do mine. If you force everything to unfold according to your own schedule, blessing ceases to be. Blessing, it becomes the product of anxiety, and every product of anxiety is as fragile as clay not yet fired. I have witnessed many souls become lost because they followed the brightest door before them, doors opened by ambition or the applause of people. When they step through them, their souls shine for a moment, only to shatter in solitude. For that light was not kindled by me. I do not only see you at the moment you enter, I see you through the seasons when you must live with every consequence. That is why I build doors of blessing using materials no human can control: peace in darkness, stillness amid noise, patience within delay. Like a seed enduring winter, so its roots may deepen before spring arrives. Your soul must walk through the season of silence, so endurance may be placed in the right depths. I do not entrust doors of blessing to those still eager to prove themselves. I entrust them to the soul who has learned to lay down its weapons and accept that I alone am the source. You will learn this, gently or painfully, depending on how fiercely you cling to control. When you hold on to control as you hold on to breath, I cannot fill you, for the vessel is already full. But when you release not in despair, but in trust, I open doors that leave you speechless, paths not beautiful for storytelling, but strong enough for your soul to step upon. The door I open is not the one you expected, but it is always the door that leads to life, and you will understand what you ask for is convenience. What I give is maturity. There are souls who believe I lift them through applause, through instant recognition, through opportunities arriving at precisely the moment they want. to prove they have never lost. But the blessing I give does not operate in such mechanisms. For what is nurtured by admiration will die when attention disappears. I do not set you upon bricks of human praise. I anchor you upon the stone of silence, where you do not need to prove anything to anyone but me. Silence is where the soul cannot rely on external noise for motivation. It must return to the inner source to find again the first breath I placed within it. You think silence is the empty interval of your life. But silence is the frame I build so your soul can be located, so that every thought may pass through the furnace of refinement without being swept away by the crowd. I am never in a hurry to make you prominent, for a soul that has not yet learned to stand will tremble before the light that shines upon it. I only raise you when you have learned not to depend on that light to exist. Neither do I use sudden leaps to lift you, for every leap demands the thrust of emotion and affirmation from the environment around you. While I desire your roots to go deep, not your branches to spread wide, I use waiting as a silent teacher, one who does not lecture with words, but lets each season of your life speak in its place. Waiting strips away what you believed was strength, so that you may see you have nothing left except the act of trusting me. When the plans you made fall useless, it is not because they were wrong, but because they no longer fit the rhythm I have assigned to your soul. In waiting, you learn what the quick roads cannot teach. True blessing does not arrive to be consumed. It arrives to restore the essence you have forgotten. You once believed delay was a sign that I abandoned you, but that very time was the space in which I was healing the deeper layers untouched by hurried prayer. When I lead you with slow steps, you will feel left behind by those who move faster, those who are celebrated as they stride through dazzling doors. But I do not compare the journey of one soul with another. Every slow step I place in your life peels away the illusion that speed is proof of grace. People run to chase recognition, while you walk slowly to preserve peace. For peace is never given to the one still racing. The slow step makes you notice the signs the hurried will never see: a single beam of light threading between leaves, the warmth of my breath in a prayer that has yet to form into words, the gentle joy like a small flame in a place the world calls dark. I know you once resented delay because it made you feel weak, but weakness is not the truth of you. Weakness is the doorway that teaches you to stop relying on human strength and begin relying on me. A soul grows not when it triumphs through battles, but when it knows how to stop at the moment I place my hand upon its shoulder. I cause you to stop so you may see that blessing is not a reward after effort, but the harmony between your step and my will. The place I use to lift you is not the place the world pays attention to, but the place where you close your eyes, depart from comparison, and allow me to reach the wounds you once hid behind rushed successes. Silence heals what words cannot. Waiting teaches the soul to trust me before seeing the outcome, and slow steps engrave in your mind a truth. Blessing does not exist to prove you are worthy before the world. It exists to prove you belong to me from the beginning. You do not need to be strong before every gaze. You only need to be steady beneath the gaze I have upon you. I do not use human strength to lift you, for human strength shifts with their interests, their jealousy, and their fear before light they cannot control. I lift you by placing you in moments so quiet you think they are meaningless, then allowing you to discover that blessing is not what you hear, it is what you become. You do not need loud proclamations when I open a path. You only need to know that no human hand can close it. My lifting does not begin on the stage, but in the inner room where only I and your soul stand face to face. When people ask, "Why have you not reached the place they predicted?" be at peace, for they look at the destination, while I look at the roots. When I complete the work I am doing in you, you will no longer need to strive to stand for the endurance I placed within. You will hold you upright. You have walked through seasons of silence, stretches of road where I made you slow down, intervals of waiting that made you think you had been left behind. and your soul has learned not to measure its worth by speed or by the eyes of the world. When I grant blessing, it does not burst like fireworks that soon burn out. It kindles like embers, unseen by most at first, yet strong enough to warm a lifetime. Such blessing does not arrive to impress, it arrives to lay foundation. It does not seek applause, it seeks a durable dwelling in a soul that has learned to become quiet. I do not build your blessing upon confusion, for anything rooted in anxiety is easily broken by the winds of life. I build blessing upon faith that has been shattered many times, yet still returns to me like a river returns to the sea. Not because it is forced, but because that is the nature for which it was created. People misunderstand blessing as a reward after effort. But in me, blessing is the precise alignment between my will and the shape of your soul after it has been refined. You do not receive it because you are good enough. You receive it because you have become silent enough to hear where I am directing the flow of life. Blessing from me does not arrive with clamor, because clamor draws the soul into applause and away from the whisper that leads. I have seen many who receive blessing from human hands only to lose everything when those expectations change. For blessings from humanity always carry conditions and instability. You do not need to guard the blessing I give with justification, because that blessing belongs to the space I establish, not the courtroom of their judgment. People may grant you a position and then take it back when attention shifts. But the blessing I give is anchored into your roots, not into temporary soil. You once believed blessing had to be certified to avoid being overlooked. But the blessing I give has no need of a sign outside your door. Its strength lies in the inner life that knows how to stand firm in the dark. You will come to see that the blessings you once thought were small when I gave them are the most enduring, because they enter your life like drops of water soaking into the ground, slowly. But once the roots grow deep, no one can touch them. I want you to understand what is durable does not need splendor to endure. It only needs to remain faithful to the source that birthed it. The blessing from me is not confined to the circumstances you now see. It is born from a wisdom beyond time, which I use to nourish the soul. I do not bless you only for today. I prepare that blessing for the day you must stand amid trials. When lies surround you, yet peace is not stolen. The blessing I place in you does not dissolve when people turn away. Because it is not a coat of approval, it is the new skin of a soul that has learned to endure the wind. Some wonder why the wealthy tremble at a rumor, while those with little sleep peacefully in storms. It is because the blessings they receive do not share the same source. And there is only one source that can keep the soul from collapsing. I do not teach you to chase blessing in order to prove you are better than anyone. I teach you to live in blessing, so you may know you need not surpass anyone to be at peace. When I place you in a position, you do not need to argue with the world to keep it. For my will itself is the wall of protection, not earthly reputation. The blessing I give does not require you to win in the eyes of others. It requires you to keep my rhythm, even when their eyes reject you. There are blessings I hide so you may feel as though you lack them, not because I wish to wound you, but because I know that if you receive too early, your soul will use it as evidence rather than foundation. I do not want blessing to become a staff you lift to prove you are right. I want it to be shade when you meet a soul that is parched. You will see moments when blessing from me does not open the opportunities people call success, but opens endurance, gentleness, and understanding of mercy that those in power have never tasted. A soul that knows its blessing does not depend on the eyes of the world, walks differently. It no longer fears misunderstanding. It no longer fears failure. It no longer fears silence. I have placed that blessing in you not so the world may applaud, but so you may become a living witness that there is a goodness beyond the logic of gain. In me, blessing is a word without sound. You do not need to earn worthiness. You simply must not leave the source. A lasting blessing does not need a change of circumstance to prove itself. It gives you endurance within the circumstance itself. Many ask me to remove their trials, but I place blessing within them so they may stand firm through the trial. For strength is not the wind that fills the sail, but the mast that does not break when storms rise. You have seen seasons when the world thought you had lost. Yet in those very seasons I was laying the foundation for a blessing without condition. People will ask you, how did you not collapse when they stood against you? And you will not speak of strategies. You will know only one truth. The blessing I give is not granted by anyone. Therefore, no one has the authority to take it away. That is durable blessing, not nourished by human promises, not pushed back by rejection, not rotted by envy, not faded when attention moves elsewhere. It remains like the trophy of trust, like the mark of a journey that only you and I know, paid for with tears and many moments of silence. And when that blessing reaches maturity, you will not need to explain it to the world. For a durable blessing does not require proof. It proves itself through the endurance of your soul. There are blessings you think are merely gifts placed upon your hand. But when I give, I do not hand you an object. I create an atmosphere in which your soul learns how to breathe. You once thought blessing was the result of a good deed, a chain of effort, an achievement worthy of respect. But blessing in me does not emerge from measured exertion. It arises from the harmony between the rhythm of your heart and my call. I do not grant blessing so you may consume it and return to your old life. I build blessing as a room where the soul learns to lay down its weapons, abandon its defenses, and stand firm without the garments of prestige. You will learn that blessing is not a charm that protects you from hardship, but the reconciliation between you and my will, where you cease seeking validation outside and begin recognizing yourself beneath my gaze. If blessing is only given, it can be taken. But if blessing is a space, you learn to dwell, and the very act of dwelling becomes strength. Therefore, I do not bless as the world rewards effort. I bless as I created Eden for the first human, not so you could build palaces, but so you might know how to be with me. Through this blessing you gradually discover that all that endures is born not from abundant reserves, but from an identity that already knows to whom it belongs. In the environment I establish, you do not come to control, you come to be placed in the right position. I do not require you to prove your worth when you step into blessing, for true blessing does not demand the receiver to generate applause. It asks only for the receiver to become still and accept. I have seen your soul many times trying to protect what you believed was blessing, like someone clutching a flask of water in the desert and trembling under every gaze. But the blessing that comes from me does not make you shrink before the world. It expands your heart so you may give without fear of running dry. When you stand within the spiritual blessing, you do not live by comparison. You live by source. You do not fill yourself with achievement. You fill yourself with presence. There, all judgment becomes small. All doubt becomes a distant echo. For the soul is no longer in the marketplace, but in the garden I keep. And only when you are in that space of blessing do you understand that peace is not a condition. It is the climate of the place I lead you into. I use blessing as a lesson not written in words, but in quiet experience. You will find yourself passing through days without praise, without recognition, without spotlight, yet no longer feeling a lack, because the soul has learned to take my presence as its sustenance. When you live within the blessing I establish, you do not seek to hold on. You simply learn to abide, and whatever you must struggle to keep will eventually slip from your hands. There are blessings I hide from human eyes because I know they would destroy them with comparison. But I never hide them from you. I place them within your heart, as a farmer hides seeds in the soil, not because he fears thieves, but because he knows only within the darkness does life begin. From that inner place, You will understand that blessing does not appear to be displayed. Blessing appears in order to grow. Within the environment of blessing I construct, there are things you think are losses that are in truth liberations. Many times I have closed a door so you may know that it is not because you are insufficient, but because that door is not compatible with the climate in which the blessing will grow within you. When blessing is about to enter a new season, I often strip away what you assumed was necessary. You think I am taking your strength, but I am removing armor too old so you are not worn down by the weight of your own fear. I do not want your blessing to support a troubled soul. I want your soul to be light so blessing can take root. Many ask me to lift them in the eyes of the world, yet I lift them by purifying the motives clinging to their hearts. I designed the space of blessing as a chamber of the soul, not where you learn to fight, but where you learn what truly matters when no one is looking. In the end, you will realize that blessing is no longer defined by descriptions, but by identity. I do not bless you so you may become a better version of yourself. I bless you so that you may return to the version I ordained from the beginning. When the soul stands in that environment, it no longer asks, "Why me?" but asks, "What must I do to remain in you more fully?" And that is the moment blessing shifts from a gift into a life. I do not want blessing merely to make you happy. I want blessing to make you enduring. I do not want blessing merely to make you feel cared for. I want blessing to teach you to love unconditionally. I do not want blessing to make you superior to others. I want blessing to anchor you deeper in me. This is the blessing that cannot be shaken by human emotion, cannot be diminished by accusation, cannot be destroyed by envy. For when you stand where I have built, every storm becomes only the sound of wind beyond the walls. My blessing does not operate like a craftsman patching a cracked surface so it may look acceptable to human eyes. It works like a potter who fires the entire vessel again to alter its structure from within. You once wanted me to draw a line of glue across the wound so everything would appear fine. But I do not grant things to the soul merely so it can stand for a season. I grant what will carry it through many seasons without breaking. I do not heal because you have finally proven yourself. I heal so you may bear the blessings that are coming. Old pain is not the mark of weakness, but proof that the previous material has completed its task and must be replaced with something stronger. When my blessing is set within you, it is not simply light poured down from above, but a reconstitution. The places once fractured become regions of resilience. The parts once fragile become pillars that support others. This is why you never return to who you were before the breaking. For blessing does not return you to the past. It grants you a new essence with which to enter the future. Some look at your blessing and think it is opportunity, luck, or compensation. But I do not bestow blessing to repay what was lost. I bestow it to build what has never existed. Like wood cured patiently before becoming an instrument, blessing is not born from emotion, but from a quiet process I observe. You have asked me why. After praying, do you still walk through heavy days? I answer because my blessing does not feed the soul through excitement, but through maturity. I need you to learn how to stand in silence without mistaking silence for abandonment. How to walk through obscurity without believing obscurity is misdirection. How to bear pressure without confusing pressure with failure. When these things are formed, no one will be able to destroy the blessing I place in you, because by then, the blessing will no longer rest on your soul, but be woven into the very material of it. And a soul tempered in this way will not tremble before human eyes, for it knows where it belongs. I have set you before doors you assumed were the answer, and I did not open them. You believed I rejected you, but I was transforming your heart from a fragile vessel into a container that withstands fire. I know there are invitations from people so appealing that they appear to be blessing, but I have closed them so your soul would not be pulled off the path I designed. You did not understand it when it occurred. For great blessings, seldom reveal themselves through spectacle. They arrive through seasons of restraint. I have allowed you to experience silence from those you loved most, not to seal you off, but to help you recognize where you must plant your roots. I do not bless you so you may lean on human shoulders. I bless you so you may learn how to stand firm in me. When the wind changes direction, shallow-rooted trees fall. But those whose roots have dug into the hidden layers of earth remain, not because their branches are strong, but because their roots have endured the unseen darkness where the sunlight never reaches. Sometimes my blessing comes through experiences that make you think something is being taken from you, like a blacksmith heating steel. I remove from you the parts that break easily in order to form something that endures pressure. There are relationships I remove not because they are evil, but because they cannot bear the weight of the blessing being shaped. There are places you are excluded from not because you are unworthy, but because you have matured to the point where you no longer need to prove yourself. I have allowed insults to reach your ears, not to wound your soul, but so you may know that true blessing needs no consensus. A heart restructured does not need the cheering of the streets. It needs only the peace within. I do not stitch your heart so you may continue the old rhythm. I change its material so it may carry seasons of blessing the world will never understand. Blessing, in the end, is not an open door nor a shift in circumstance, but a soul that has learned I am in Him. When the heart has changed its substance, it no longer reacts out of fear of lack, but responds from the assurance of my decree. You will find yourself crossing dark stretches without needing artificial light, because the soul has become its own lamp. You will no longer be unsettled by envy or accusation, for they are only noise outside the perimeter of the blessing I shelter you in. And when people ask you why you are at peace amid storms, you will not speak of what you did. You will speak of the one who transformed your soul from within, not through sweet promises, but through a quiet process, step by step, breath by breath. Blessing is not merely what you receive, it is the person you become. There is a truth you only recognize after you have exhausted yourself trying to control the prayers you offer. To me, do not become stronger when you strain, scream, or attempt to prove your worthiness. I do not listen to souls performing their strength. I listen to souls who relax into the truth that they cannot save themselves. Like a boat on the water, you may strike the oar against the current, forcing your way and believing it is the fastest route to your desired shore. But the water does not bend to your will. It shifts only when you release the oar, so that your movement aligns with the river's heart. There are seasons when you believe what you lack is effort, but in truth, what you lack is surrender. When you pray to me in fear, your heart clings to the thing you want, but when you pray to me in surrender, your heart clings to me. That surrender does not make you weak, it liberates you from a battle that was never yours to fight. Returning the soul to its rightful place, I am the one who directs, and you are the soul being led. You have grown accustomed to seeing prayer as a campaign, an attempt to prove that you are hurting, that you are in lack, that you require intervention. But prayer becomes life only when it ceases to be a weapon of negotiation and becomes the natural breath of a soul that knows it is not the center. A clenched hand cannot receive, but hands rested upon knees can hold everything I give. When you strain, you turn blessing into a reward to be seized, but when you release, blessing becomes the alignment between my will and a heart already at peace. I do not want you to study the philosophy of surrender. I want you to experience it as a state of being. You do not need to prove yourself before me, because I know you even when you deny yourself. In the hours when you can only breathe heavily to keep calm, I do not demand a complete prayer. I ask only for a trust that does not resist me. When you let go of the need to control, the prayer does not disappear, it simply changes its nature. It no longer becomes a desperate scream for rescue, but a gentle confession. I do not know how to step forward, but I know the one in whom I can rest. In that state, it is not you who persuade me to act. It is the peace I place within you that allows your soul to realize my action began before you spoke. Like the sower who sits at the edge of his field, he does not stay awake, counting every movement of the sprout. He sows. Then he sleeps. He trusts that life works silently in the soil he cannot see. So it is with you when prayer no longer rests upon the desire to control the outcome. It enters resonance with me, and from that moment, blessing ceases to be a goal and becomes the natural consequence of faith. I have never asked you to be strong before me. I do not ask. Are you prepared enough, I ask? Are you willing to let go? For if you come in perfection, you will believe blessing is a prize. But if you come in your lack, you will understand blessing is grace. Many souls want me to free them from the vortex of control, yet they dare not step into the space of surrender because they fear it will be seen as failure. But surrender in me is not a dead end, it is the beginning of life. Every stream I open begins at the point where water rests and gathers strength, not where it thrashes in agitation. My blessing does not cling to those who know how to grasp and compete, but rests upon hearts willing to open so that I may shape them, nourish them, and lead them. Therefore, when you come to me, do not attempt to present a complete case file. You simply need to enter my presence with a heart that no longer resists. Prayer stops being a report and becomes the space where a soul rests within my authority. I know you are tired of explaining yourself to others, tired of convincing them to see you properly. I do not need you to persuade me. I need you to trust me. When you come to me in trust, you walk out of the forest of reason and set foot on the ground of faith where I work, not with neon lights, but with gentle winds, slow steps, and signs the world dismisses as meaningless. Yet those very things nourish the soul more deeply than any quick promise. There is a subtle mistake many souls stumble into. They think blessing arrives when they draw attention from the world, when they speak loudly enough, when they prove themselves deserving. But my blessing does not come through noise. It comes through the inward stillness that has learned not to rush. Noise exhausts the soul, while steadiness allows it to breathe again in the rhythm I set. You may see people crowding through busy roads where bright lights and clamor make them believe they are moving forward, just as paved streets choked with footsteps lead to exhaustion, while the quiet footpath leads to the spring. My blessing is like that path. It may not display splendor on the surface, but it sustains life. Souls who know how to wait do not stand idle in hopelessness. They stand in trust, like the sower placing seeds in the soil without digging it up every morning to see whether roots have formed. That steadiness is not the silence of fear, but the silence of one who knows I am working where eyes cannot see. There were times when you grew impatient seeing others mentioned, praised, recommended, while your words fell into the void. You mistook that silence for failure. But there are blessings I will not expose to human eyes, for those eyes would make your soul dependent upon them. I preserve the most important parts of you in silence, so you do not build identity upon approval. If I opened doors while you were still busy seeking recognition, blessing would become a burden you must carry, rather than the environment in which you live. Waiting does not make you someone who arrives late. It makes you someone who arrives in the right place. Like the underground waters flowing beneath rock, unseen yet nourishing the forest. The hidden parts of your life are not meaningless. They are the foundation I am laying, so that blessing will not break you when it arrives. Spiritual steadiness is not a state you suddenly acquire after a peaceful night. It is the result of countless small choices across seasons when your heart wanted to erupt, when misunderstood. You once wanted to explain when insulted. You once wanted to answer back when others surged ahead. You once wanted to prove yourself, but each time you chose peace instead of contention. You laid a stone in the floor of your inner house. I do not value displays of grand performance. I look at the choices no one sees, like the old roots beneath the soil, invisible and unpraised, yet holding the whole tree upright in the wind. Your quiet steadfastness in unseen seasons is what keeps you from collapsing when blessing arrives. This is not the stability of indifference, but the stability of one who knows blessing does not require noise to exist. There are souls who believe waiting means being left behind, so they propel themselves forward by any means. But you must understand this. Not every closed door is an obstacle. Some doors I lock so that your soul will not lose its peace in the battle for advantage. You may shake the world with action, but you cannot move me with impatience. Blessing is not given to those with swift hands. Blessing is given to those who have learned to breathe according to my rhythm. I have determined the speed of the river. You only need to swim in the direction I lead. Souls who hurry are often swept into whirlpools, while souls who know how to wait glide through deep waters without panic, not because they are strong, but because they know not every movement is progress, just as not every stillness is stagnation. When you step into my blessing, you do not need to make declarations before the world. You do not need to prove your worth. You do not need to convince anyone. You only need to remain still in the steadiness I have been teaching you through long seasons. It is that steadiness that makes you different. It turns blessing from something you try to grasp into something that comes of its own accord to a soul that is ready. Just as a lake can only mirror the sky when its surface is no longer disturbed, so a soul that is no longer pulled to the left by praise, to the right by criticism, driven forward by ambition, or dragged backward by memories, is finally able to reflect me. Blessing does not come to make you dazzling in the eyes of people, but to prove that you have learned to look toward me without trembling, without inner tug of war, without panic. When the soul is at rest, blessing becomes the path, no longer a battlefield. There are souls who think blessing is a portion of bread placed in the middle of a banquet table, and whoever is quicker will take it. So they rush, scan the room, stay on guard, afraid that if they do not leap first, their portion will belong to someone else. But my blessing is not a dish to be fought over. It is a place I have crafted specifically for each soul. When you chase after what others have, you unknowingly bypass what I have prepared for you, because your eyes are no longer fixed on me. Those who strive and scramble may obtain something that looks like blessing, but what they hold is merely the temporary result of human will, not the flow I have ordained. Not every door that opens through effort is a door I have opened. There are doors the soul forces open, and for that reason, they must bear the consequences alone. Meanwhile, the one who belongs to me does not need to push and shove. They walk calmly into the place where their name is already written, because my blessing is not attached to speed, but to the harmony between my will and a soul that knows how to be at peace. When you understand this, you will gradually stop looking around to see who is faster, who is mentioned, who is favored. You will begin to look up, to the very place where blessing is given. Those who strive and compete always live with a deep fear that they are lacking, that if they do not seize things immediately, do not prove themselves, do not surpass others, they will be left behind. That fear turns them into victims of noise, comparison, and the pressure of viewing themselves through the lens of the world. They may climb high, but they do not stand firm, because blessing cannot support a soul that has not learned to lean on me. But the one who belongs to me, even if they walk slowly, is not afraid of being late, because they know blessing does not run from them. Blessing waits until they have grown enough to carry it. Just as a person does not plunge into the sea before they have learned to swim, but stands at the water's edge until the waves are no longer a threat, so it is with the soul. It does not rush into an opportunity just because it sees others jump. The blessing reserved for you cannot be taken by anyone else's hand. It only steps back when you try to enter it with a competitive heart. I did not place you in a contest. I placed you on a journey. When you stop comparing, you will realize that my blessing has never been scarce. It is simply that you have not yet reached the season I intend. You have seen people attain the very things you have long desired. And deep within, a whisper has caused your heart to ask, why do they have what I do not yet have? But blessing is not measured by when it appears in the eyes of the world. Blessing is measured by your ability to keep it without losing your soul. There are things I give to others, not because they are superior, but because they are in a different season, because the path I lead them on is not the same path I lead you on. If you look at blessing through the lens of comparison, you will unconsciously try to catch up, and every time you try, you step away from the place I have chosen for you. That place requires no competition. It waits for your soul to arrive. Not with triumphalism, but with maturity, as the land waits for rain, not forcing the clouds to come. So my blessing waits for the soul that chooses to sink its roots into me, instead of chasing the feeling of glory. No one can take your portion from you, but you yourself can lose it by dragging your soul into a race that was never yours to run. When you belong to me, you learn a subtle kind of freedom. You no longer try to stand in front of others. You simply stand in the place I have set for you. There will be those who surge ahead in the eyes of the world, those who are honored because their voices echo loudly, those whose hands are taken and led into places that look like mountaintops. But noise is not the sign that I have chosen them, and silence is not the sign that I have abandoned you. I build blessing as an architect builds a foundation. There are parts buried beneath the surface where no one can see, yet they carry the weight of the entire structure. Those who contend for blessing often build the roof before the base because they want to see results immediately. And that is precisely why they collapse on the first windy day. The one who belongs to me, however, builds the foundation first. They may not receive applause in the marketplace, but when the season of blessing overflows, every wind becomes a tributary that only strengthens the flow. I use slowness, depth, and waiting to teach the soul how to keep blessing, because if it does not learn this beforehand, blessing will turn into a trap. Do not think that those who strive and compete are strong. They are merely souls who have not yet dared to trust me enough to stand still. True strength is not shown in how much you can seize, but in the fact that you do not need to snatch anything at all. I do not teach you how to defeat others. I teach you how to stand firm in me. Blessing does not come from the place where you have overcome them. It comes from the place where you no longer feel the need to win over them. When you step into the place I open, you no longer have to keep watching to your right, to your left, or behind you. You only need to look ahead in the rhythm I set, and you will come to see something profound. My blessing does not teach you to become a possessor. My blessing teaches you to become one who walks in balance, who upholds others, who moves gently through the world while carrying a light no one can extinguish. There is a particular silence in the souls who know they are walking in my blessing. They are in no hurry to explain why the door opened. They feel no need to justify why the season has come. They do not strain to convince the world that they are worthy. Blessing is not a business card you must present to prove yourself, nor is it a certificate you must hang up to shield yourself from suspicious eyes. What I give is not born so you can stand at the center of attention. What I give is so you may become a pathway through which I am seen, like a lantern that casts a steady light around it without blinding anyone. My blessing does not move through explosions of noise, but through a quiet radiance that allows the weary to look up and know that there is a way forward. People may raise questions. They may compare. They may construct their own stories to interpret your prosperity. But what I bestow is not subject to their narratives. A soul standing in me has no need to win arguments. It only needs to live so gently that whoever looks upon it can sense a presence that words could never fully prove. There will be eyes that scrutinize the blessings in your life. as if they were searching for cracks beneath the glaze, trying to find a reason to say that you did something or took something from someone. But I do not require you to protect your blessing with explanations. I protect what I give. Every debate you enter to justify your blessedness pulls your soul away from its center. You were not born to be a presenter of evidence. You were born to be a mirror reflecting my light. A mirror does not argue with the darkness. It simply reflects the source of light. When you live with a gentle heart, people may think you are weak, but that very gentleness is proof that you know you do not need to stay on guard to survive. The one who must defend themselves is the one who fears loss. The one who knows blessing comes from me, fears no hand that tries to take it. That gentleness does not make you smaller, it makes me greater in the eyes of those who look at you. You once thought that blessing would make people rejoice over you, but they often do not understand it. They look at blessing as a privilege, not realizing that behind it are the long seasons you have walked in, me when no one was watching. So, when blessing comes, some will ask, "What did you do to deserve it?" And that very question reveals the confusion of the world. They think blessing is an exchange between effort and outcome. But blessing does not originate from merit, it originates from grace. And grace is not something you deserve, but something you receive as you walk in obedience. When you live in meekness, you do not try to analyze why blessing comes, you simply continue to walk calmly so that others may see me through your life. The world will have the chance to witness something they cannot understand, a soul that blooms without applause, stands firm without praise, and bears fruit without public announcement. To walk humbly with your God, Micah 6:8, is not the posture of one who avoids people, but the posture of one who knows they are walking beside the one who opens the way. Meekness is not the silence of the fearful, it is the peace of the one who trusts me. Those who fight for position must shout to be heard, but the one I lead only needs to walk. When I bring you into places where the lights are bright, you do not need to seize the stage. If I want you to be heard, I will cause everyone else to be silent so you can speak. If I want you to have a seat, I will ensure that no one else can take it. If I want you to step through, I will open the door by making it so that no one dares to block your way. When you live in that spirit, blessing is no longer something you must protect from scrutiny. It is something you place back into my hands with every gentle step. Each meek action is not a sign of weakness. It is an unspoken declaration I trust you. And in that silent declaration, my blessing becomes more evident than any argumentative testimony. Therefore, when blessing comes, do not turn it into a wall between you and others. Do not use it to prove that you were right and they were wrong. Turn it into a window so that others may look through you and see me. They do not need to know the seasons of emptiness you have endured, the times when tears fell in silence, the nights you stood in the storm, still holding my hand. They only need to see that you are at peace. That peace is a testimony more powerful than any speech, because it does not spring from favorable circumstances, but from my presence. When my blessing is at work, you do not rise to receive praise, you rise to become a point of contact, a bridge, a light soft enough that the wandering are not blinded, yet bright enough for them to find their way home. Blessing does not make you appear greater, it makes me appear nearer in the eyes of the world. When my blessing begins to show in your life, the first thing the world will try to do is pull you out of meekness so that you feel compelled to prove yourself. Compare yourself, argue, and stretch to surpass someone in order to be acknowledged. But my blessing is not born of strife, and it is not preserved by strife. There are souls who believe humility is the retreat of the weak, but they do not understand that true humility is the cloak I place on you to protect what has just begun to sprout. A seed does not break out of the soil with noise, it silently splits its shell. People look at that silence and assume nothing is happening. But it is precisely in that silence that life is shielded from the wind, from the storm, and from prying eyes. When humility is kept, blessing is not exposed on the battlefield of competition. It is nurtured in stillness so that, in due time, it can stand without needing any external reinforcement. You are not lesser because you stay silent. You are guarding your heart from the decay that comes from words determined to hollow it out. There are those who seek blessing as a crown, and they wear it with pride, convinced it proves their superiority. But my blessing is not a crown to affirm status. It is the warmth that preserves the life of your soul. If you wear blessing as the armor of the ego, every word of praise becomes a needle that inflates pride, and every criticism becomes a spear that pierces the soul. Humility teaches you not to attach blessing to yourself, but to place it back in me, the place from which it came and the place where it is kept. When you bow your head, it is not because you are small, but because you know that all you have flows from a source that does not belong to the earth. When you bow your head, the winds cannot easily reach your soul, just as the bamboo in the storm does not break, because it knows how to bend with the force without losing its roots. Arrogance is rigid like dry wood, and even a small pressure can snap it. Humility is soft without dissolving, and because of that, it outlasts every form of showiness. There will be moments when you are tempted to lift yourself up to respond to those who disdain you. They will look at your blessing and say, you are unworthy, that your blessing is luck, that it is only a fleeting moment that will soon fade. In those moments, if you try to prove yourself, you will place your soul into the battle they have chosen, a battle of person against person, ego against ego, opinion against opinion. But my blessing did not come through the path of competition, so if you drag it into that arena, you will only wear it down. Humility removes you from the field of the crowd's gaze and brings you back to the place where blessing was born, not in applause, but in the quiet where I walked with you through drought. Those who only see the season of flowers do not know that the roots have lived on tears, on courage, on the many times you chose faith when everything before you looked like night. Your worth does not lie in their shallow understanding. Your worth lies in the hand that held you when no one was watching. Humility does not dim the light. It adjusts its brightness so others are not dazzled but can draw near. A fire that is too large will burn, but a flame that is just enough will warm. When you keep blessing within a gentle heart, others do not see you as a rival, but as a refuge. You no longer live like a watchman defending your territory. You live like a gardener, knowing that trees are not nourished by applause, but by the hidden flow of water beneath the soil. Humility is not an apology for having been chosen by me. Humility is the quiet agreement that I am the one who chooses, and you are simply the one being led. Those who race to the summit to look down will soon grow weary, but the one who bows to sow will see the field full at harvest time. When you choose that place, blessing does not make you the center. It makes you a doorway through which many other souls are led into life. In the end, humility is not a moral performance for people to praise. It is the mechanism I have placed within the soul to preserve blessing from decay. Just as bread left outside will harden, but bread kept in a sealed jar will remain soft. Blessing kept in the ego dries quickly, but blessing kept in a grateful heart becomes a long-lasting source of nourishment. An arrogant soul spends blessing like someone who has won the lottery for a moment, but a humble soul stewards blessing like one who knows they have been entrusted, not rushing to indulge, not flaunting to gain influence, not using blessing as a ladder to step on others, simply walking on gently, like one who knows that grace did not come because they are special, but because I am merciful. And this very knowing becomes the invisible wall that keeps blessing from rotting, not through defensiveness, but through the continual awareness blessing belongs to me, and you are only the keeper. Blessing that comes from me does not create tense ownership. It opens gratitude like the natural breath of the soul. It does not require you to train reactions. Because blessing from me is like the light of dawn, it appears, by nature of the sun, not because you strain to hold the horizon in place. When blessing is placed in my hands, you no longer see it as a fragile possession, but as a stream of water flowing across dry fields. You do not ask, when will it dry up? You simply let the soil drink. Blessing from me does not push you into competition, does not make you afraid that your friends will surpass you, does not drag you into the calculations of what you must do to preserve your status. It teaches you that presence is the root and action is only the branch. When you give thanks, it is not because you are afraid of losing what you have, but because you recognize that I have never left. Gratitude is not a desperate cry begging me not to close the door. It is the stance of standing still within the hand that has already opened it. Blessing from me does not need to be proven. It only needs not to be mistaken for a trophy of conquest. By contrast, blessing from people always comes with conditions, and those conditions resemble an invisible cord tightening around the neck of the soul. The one who gives can change their mind. The one who praises can turn away. The one who lifts you up can bring you down for a single mistake or because jealousy arose in them one night. When blessing comes from there, every glance you meet becomes a warning. Every whisper in the hallway becomes a threat. Every word of praise turns into a knife in your back when people are no longer entertained. You do not live in grace, you live in defense. You do not walk by the light, you walk by fear. Fear of losing relationships, fear of losing your job, fear of losing your position, fear of losing the approving gaze that never truly belonged to you. Fear is the proof that such blessing does not originate in me. For the blessing I give does not require your trembling to hold it. The blessing people give forces you to watch each move, so you do not accidentally let it fall. Blessing from me is like steady breathing in sleep. You do not strive, yet life continues to flow. When that blessing is present, you do not wake in the night to check whether you are still loved. You simply sleep in peace, knowing that love does not withdraw from your soul at midnight. You are not terrified by small mistakes. You simply correct them and go on, because you know I have never placed blessing in your life as a demand for perfection. I do not lay a word of promise upon you and then build a fence of regulations around it. I place blessing into your very soul so that it merges with your breath, and then I teach you how to live within it. Gratitude does not come from polite manners. It springs from a deep awareness that everything is grace, and that you could never have produced it by yourself. You are grateful because you know I hold it, not because you are holding it. Grateful because blessing is the path I lead you on, not a contract you have secured. And when you give thanks rightly, blessing does not swell into pride, it settles into peace. Human blessing, even when wrapped in silk, covered in gold, and decorated with words of praise, still resembles a cage. At first it is warm, then it becomes cramped, and eventually it forces you to stand in exactly the right pose so as not to offend anyone. Those who bestow worldly blessing do not give it to set you free. They give it to keep you within a zone they can control. When they want to withdraw it, all they need is a rumor, a burst of anger, a look of contempt, and you will tremble, not because you lost something, but because you had placed your identity in their hands. I do not want your soul to live like a bird afraid of breaking its wings, forever fearing the cage might slam shut behind it. I want you to know that blessing from me is like the field I have sown. If the wind carries away the seedlings, I will sow again. If the rain flattens the heads of grain, I will lift them. My blessing does not reinforce your fear. It removes fear's reason to exist. My child, look back at the seasons when I blessed you and no one knew. Those mornings when you got up without anyone to encourage you. Those nights when you sighed yet still chose to pray. Those times you were rejected yet refused to grow bitter. There was no audience, no crowd, no spotlight, only you and me. And still, blessing flowed. That is the proof. Blessing from me needs no witnesses. It needs only a soul willing to return. And when you give thanks to me for that, you do not bow your head in fear of loss. You bow because you see that you have been kept. You are grateful because blessing is relationship, not reward. Grateful because blessing is a way of life, not a medal. A soul that knows how to be grateful does not need to cling, because blessing from me does not demand that the soul cling to anything. It asks only that the soul stand in the place where I have led it. There comes a point in the journey when blessing is no longer an event you wait for, but becomes the very air you breathe. At that point, you no longer try to guard every step with calculation, nor do you rush to treat peace as a fragile stroke of luck that will soon vanish. You begin to understand that blessing does not come to impress or to satisfy the craving to prove yourself. It comes to soften the soul, to lighten your steps, to let your heart know whose hand it rests in. When blessing is a spiritual state, your breathing is no longer interrupted by fear. It becomes steady, like the tide rising and falling, answerable to no human command, yet obedient to the deep laws of the universe. Then you no longer struggle between faith and doubt. For faith is no longer a choice you must fight to keep. It is the natural ground on which your heart stands. You still live in the world, but the world no longer dictates your heartbeat. You still work, but your peace is no longer dependent on human permission. Blessing within you is not noisy, not dazzling, not frantic. It is like the dawn soaking into the grass. No one hears it arrive. Yet once it is there, the whole world changes hue. When blessing becomes a state, you no longer spend yourself asking, "Am I enough, or will this blessing disappear if I fail?" You stop seeing blessing as a prize for a sequence of correct behaviors and begin to realize that blessing is a rhythm of life you are invited to join. You do not walk with the mindset of protecting your reputation, nor do you dread the scrutinizing gaze of others when life takes an unexpected turn. For blessing is not anchored in what you build, it is anchored in the one who understands even the deepest places of your soul. When you are weak, blessing does not depart. When you are weary, blessing does not fade. When you fall silent, blessing does not fall into silence. Everything else shifts, but one thing remains unchanged. I uphold you. Like a seasoned sailor who no longer reads the waves to guess the shore, but reads the stars to find his course. You learn to look at me rather than the turbulence, to look at grace rather than at events. And in that new rhythm of life, lightness does not come from strength you have forged. It comes from the arm that has quietly lifted you every time you thought you were alone. There are some who step into blessing like someone wearing a new suit of armor. They try to keep it, to control it, to prove their worthiness by doing more, showing more, straining more. But blessing is not meant for souls that are braced and rigid. Blessing is for souls that know how to lower their shoulders. When you accept that blessing is not a victory you have won, you no longer walk with the mindset, "If I am not enough, the blessing will leave," but with the conviction, "I am kept because I am in His presence. Therefore, blessing remains." I do not bless you so that you may purchase respect, nor do I bless you so that you may race against the destinies of others. I bless you so that you may learn to rest in your own place. Like an ancient tree standing in the heart of the earth, not comparing heights, not competing for sunlight, only stretching in the direction I designed. When you no longer have to prove yourself, lightness begins, and from that lightness, blessing shifts from being an external gift into an inner rhythm of life. Blessing, my child, is the place where freedom passes through the shell of pride and fear. then comes to rest in the depths where you finally understand that I have never placed you on the scales of this world. When you allow the world to determine your worth, even true blessing becomes a burden, because your soul must always stay on guard, wondering on which day everything will collapse. But when you allow me to direct you, blessing is no longer a fragile object, but a solid foundation built not by applause, but by trust. People may not understand why you are at peace when they think you should be afraid, why you are grateful when they think you should be disappointed, why you keep walking when they think you have already lost all hope. Yet they do not see my arm lifting you in a place where human eyes cannot reach, just as no one sees the root beneath the soil. And yet it carries the weight of the whole tree. Blessing is the root, not the leaf. Blessing is the trunk, not the flower. Blessing is breath, not the shout of joy. And when blessing becomes a spiritual state, you no longer ask, "What must I do to keep it?" but simply, "Whom am I walking with?" For blessing does not lie in actions. Blessing lies in companionship. I lift you step by step so that you may know that even when you feel light, it is not a sign of your sufficiency, but the result of a soul moving in rhythm with me. You walk lightly because I lift you. You stand firm because I hold you. You do not stumble because I have seen the stone before it appeared. Blessing from me is not a special favor reserved for a few, but the way I keep a soul from falling into the exhaustion of life. And when you recognize this, you no longer want to prove yourself. You simply want to live. You no longer want to strive. You simply want to trust. You no longer want to control. You simply want to let me continue to carry you. There was a time when you lived in anxiety, believing that blessing was a rare reward for days when you were good enough, patient enough, or strong enough not to break under human scrutiny. Each time you saw someone honored in front of others, your heart trembled with the dream of seizing the same position, as though blessing were an item fighting for space on a table. That obsession made you weary. You no longer enjoyed the very grace already present in your life, but only searched for signs of new blessings to reassure yourself that you were still chosen. Yet my blessing is not the temporary praise of the world, nor the quick affirmation of people who change easily. When you mature in me, blessing becomes the air you breathe, not an object you chase. You no longer try to clutch blessing like trying to hold dew in your hand, because you know blessing does not scatter when the hand releases. It seeps into the soul when the soul learns how to be still. Just as a traveler walking through a forest does not count every leaf in order to verify that life exists, you do not count graces to prove my presence. You simply walk, and blessing walks with you. Souls, still young in their journey of faith, often see blessing as a milestone to reach, as a stage where their names will be called, so the world can acknowledge their worth. They live in a constant state of waiting if nothing grand happens. If no new gift appears, they think blessing has left them. But I do not give blessing in a way that forces you to live in fear of being abandoned. I do not create blessing as a prize the soul must earn, but as a quiet flow that allows you to grow without burning out. When blessing becomes air, you no longer check your pockets, doors, or the faces of others to find proof. You simply need to breathe. You stop asking, "Is it enough yet?" and begin asking, "Where am I in you?" For blessing does not depend on what you hold, but on the one you dwell with. Obsession fades when you realize that blessing is a state of steadiness, not a trophy of effort. There are times I let you walk through a season of scarcity, not because I want you to suffer, but because I want you to recognize what is not blessing. When no one calls your name, when opportunities do not arrive as quickly as you hoped, the soul tends to assume that blessing has stepped back. But blessing never stands behind the bleak seasons. It stands beneath them like ground. When you stop dissecting every event to decide, "Am I blessed or not?" that is precisely the moment blessing has become air, like someone who has once sunk deep under water. When they return to the shore, they do not beg for each breath, they simply breathe. You are not someone who must plead for breath each day. You are someone who lives by that breath. I do not want you to move through life as one auditing grace, counting every blessing to make sure you have not been forgotten. I want you to move through life as one who has realized that blessing lies in the very rhythm of my companionship, every step, every breath, every minute. You will know you have changed when you no longer need a reason to be grateful. You no longer wait for great gifts, unexpected turns, or glittering outcomes to bow your head in thanks. You are grateful because morning still comes, because your heart still beats, because the doors I have not yet opened are also keeping you from places where you would lose yourself. When blessing is air, gratitude is no longer a conditional reaction, but an inner reflex. You no longer need to push yourself to the edge, nor sit anxiously at the door of the future waiting for a flash of light. You simply listen to where I place your feet upon the ground, and you will see my hand placing blessing in each step. The obsession with, am I blessed or not, is like noise in the mind when it quiets. You hear what has always been there. I am walking with you. And when your soul is soaked in this truth, you no longer compare your life with the lives of others. You stop asking, why are they moving faster? Why must I wait? Why does their blessing seem more radiant than mine? These questions melt like mist when you stand under the light I give. Air does not distinguish between the wealthy and the weary. It surrounds all. Yet those who breathe deeply receive more than those who only gasp in shallow bursts. So it is with blessing. Those who understand that blessing is my companionship will live in peace, even when there is no visible sign to display. Those who see blessing as a possession to guard will soon be exhausted, because they are always afraid it might disappear at any moment. But you are not the keeper of blessing. You are the one who lives within it. And when you learn this, blessing is no longer a destination. It becomes the space in which you exist, like air, with no visible beginning, no visible end, only fullness in me. For a very long time, you believed that blessing had to be approved by someone, a person with power, a community, or a group who held the doors you longed to enter. When praise came, you felt lifted. When criticism came, you felt destroyed. Your soul was pulled like a kite lost in the wind, and every gust from human lips changed your direction. But blessing is not in their hands, nor in the gaze they cast upon you. Blessing is the word I spoke to your soul from the beginning, before you knew how to love, how to fear, how to be disappointed, how to expect. No sneer or scorn can erase what I have pressed into your core, because my word is not ink on paper, but light engraved into your very being. And when you begin to understand this, you no longer tremble each time people change their attitude. You stand steady like the earth, for blessing does not come from the rain. Blessing comes from the spring I have placed beneath your surface. Immature souls often chase external validation, as if blessing were a precious gem that only gains value when handed to them by others. They place their hearts on the scale of public opinion, and every criticism becomes a blade that cuts into them. But my blessing is not a gift from the crowd. It is the inner seal of the one who knew you before the world had a name to call you by. Like the seed I plant in the soil, it sleeps quietly through winter without needing any admiring gaze. And when the right season comes, it rises, even if people have forgotten where it was sown. I sow blessing into your soul in that same way, without noise, without display, without applause. People may not understand why you bloom after a long period of obscurity, but they do not know that your roots have reached into my presence since the days they thought you had withered. When blessing becomes the word I speak to you, the sprouting is no longer a mystery. It is the natural result of the word. There are times when I allow you to walk through the valleys of life, so you may see that blessing is not a splendid garment meant to impress. You walk through places without lights and without cheering voices, and you believe yourself abandoned. Yet, in that very darkness, blessing quietly slips into every crack of your soul, like warmth soaking into cold hands. When people depart, blessing does not depart. When people snatch away, blessing does not disappear. When people mock, blessing does not fade. For blessing does not reside in the results you hold before your eyes, but in the companionship you have with me. No one can take blessing from you, because no one ever gave it. No one can prevent you from rising, because no one is master over the light within you. You are simply learning to see what has been there from the beginning. Blessing is not something you receive, blessing is something you were created in. When the soul understands this, you no longer fear losing blessing. You do not clutch it like a fragile possession, nor hide it beneath your pillow, nor flee when people change their attitude. You live gently, you walk softly, because you know blessing does not originate from the temporary kindness of the world, but from my eternal will. And when blessing is no longer something you must prove, you no longer search for stages to perform upon or rivals to surpass. You return to the stillness where I have waited for you all along. And in that stillness you find blessing operating like breath, not displayed, not gripped, not fought over. You see that every step taken with me is a door opening. Every decision to listen is a new land. Every surrender is a deeper layer of blessing. People may ask why you are not trying, but you know that effort does not lead you into blessing. Only surrender takes you to the place I have already prepared. And when you realize this, you step into a life of peace no one can interfere with. You understand blessing is not the word I grant to you today, but the word I have appointed for you from the beginning. That word does not fluctuate with the emotions of people, does not vanish when you are misunderstood, does not fade when rejection touches you, and does not shatter when betrayal wounds you. Blessing is the voice I speak to your soul, not to the crowd, not to the curious observers, not to those whose hearts are closed, but to you alone. When you stand within that word, the world around you may tremble, but your soul will stand firm. No one can remove what I have placed into your very being. For I did not put blessing in your hand, I placed it in your soul. In the end, when you close your eyes after the long journey, you will realize blessing was never a treasure to be wrestled from the hands of others, nor a ticket to enter crowded rooms in search of recognition. Blessing stood beside you silently, even when you thought you were forgotten. When your steps trembled at crossroads no one witnessed. When your heart was weak beneath unjust judgment. Oh, my child, blessing is not the applause of a crowd, but the quiet rhythm I placed within you, the heartbeat of a life that knows it no longer lives to please the world, but to live rightly in the light I have given. You may walk through years in which people do not understand your choices, may step into rooms where they look at you with suspicion, may hear rumors swirling like a night storm. But blessing does not fall away with the noise. It takes root in the place where I hold you. Then a day will come when you no longer ask me why blessing has not arrived, but simply whisper that blessing has walked with you since the first dawn. You will know that silence is not a sign I abandoned you, but a shield so you would not build your life upon fleeting expectations. You will see that doors which seemed closed were there so your eyes would not cling to human hands, but return to my breath. You will see that whirlpools of competition in others' lives could not pull you in, because your blessing did not come from victory or defeat, but from your choice to remain in me. And when you step calmly into the place I prepared, people may ask, who gave permission? But your soul will already know that Revelation 3:7, what I have opened, no one can shut. My child, let blessing no longer be a proclamation you must shout to the world, but the deep tone reverberating within your soul as you walk, even if your steps go unnoticed, even if the road is not praised. It is your firmness in peace that silences those who measure blessing by rankings. Because the blessing I set within you is not measured by instant results, but by a heart that knows how to lift its head when misunderstood. Remain gentle when envied, and stay silent when attacked. There are blessings I place upon you not so people may marvel, but so that a weary soul beside you may survive another day. There are blessings I give not so you stand on heights, but so that you bow your head beneath my gaze and remember that everything which opens does not come from your merit, but from my will. When you walk toward the final stretch of this journey, hold one thing within your heart. Blessing is not proof that you are superior, but proof that I have never abandoned you. Let that awareness settle into each step, each breath, each word you speak. Let blessing become what you carry within, not what you present outwardly. And when another soul looks at you, they will not see one who is lucky, but one who is led, and they will know that no one can close the door I have opened for you. Now pray like this, Lord. Help me to see blessing through your eyes, not through the lens of human expectation. When my heart is pulled toward external standards, remind me that grace is not measured by applause or by the number of praises. I do not need to be lifted up by opinion. I need to be formed by you. Place my soul in the position you have ordained, so I do not seek strength and approval but peace in your presence. Lord, withdraw from me the habit of comparison, the silent envy, and the fear of being left behind. I once believed blessing was a scarce seat, that if someone else sat in it, I must stand outside. But teach me that blessing does not come from competition, but from surrender. Wash my mind clean of scarcity, that I may see your grace is never limited by the world. Lord, heal within me the tendency to see the success of others as evidence of my own failure. I once looked at their praise as judgment against my worth, but I know that you do not distribute grace by ranking. Teach me to rejoice with those who are blessed, for their blessing does not diminish me. Grant me peace when others are lifted up, for their elevation does not push me down. Lord, free me from the shackles of seeking blessing from human hands. I do not want my soul to become a hostage to their fragile promises. Help me to know that blessing does not reside in the eyes of those who approve, nor vanish in the gaze of those who scorn. It is the heartbeat you breathe into me, the life that no one can take away. Lord, place me within the space of blessing that you have fashioned, not in the garden fenced in by the world. I have stood outside doors locked by people, thinking they determined my future. But help me remember that when you open, no one can close. When you close, no one can break through. Lead me into the land you water, where I grow not through competition, but through your nourishment. Lord, grant me peace when my blessing does not resemble the blessing of others. There were moments when I doubted myself because I did not walk their path and did not reach what they reached. But teach me that there are seasons in which I must sink into the soil like a silent seed, so that when I emerge, I do not fade like grass, but stand firm like a tree with deep roots. Lord, free me from the pressure to prove myself. I have tried to give, to serve, to love, only in the hope of receiving acknowledgement. But you know my heart better than any voice. Teach me to love without expecting return, to serve without seeking recognition, to walk without needing applause, but because your life flows within me. Lord, protect my soul from the storms of circumstance. When people compete to get ahead, teach me how to stand quietly and firmly. When they use the measures of the world to judge what I do, help me keep my eyes on you. For in you, every step I take carries value. even if no one knows it, even if no one praises it, even if the world considers it small. Lord, give me a freedom that does not come from defeating others, but from being at peace with your will. I do not want my heart to become a battlefield of comparison, of fear of being left behind, of the desire to please everyone. Teach me that as long as I walk after you, I am going in the right direction, even if I move more slowly than people expect. Lord, teach me to accept the spiritual pace you have set for me. Some are elevated quickly. Some are brought onto bright paths. I do not need to envy them, for I know you are preparing roots in me. Give me patience in the quiet years, knowing that true blessing is not the flower that blooms early, but the tree that stands through many seasons. Lord, keep me from the temptation to close my heart to others when blessing comes slowly. I once thought that guarding myself with coldness would be safer, but I have learned that scars are not meant to lock the soul away, but to remind me that you rescued me from false expectations. Make me tender in your hands, even when the world is sharp. Lord, help me enter the freedom that true blessing brings, where I do not need to compete in order to stand firm, do not need to display myself to be seen, do not need to prove myself to be accepted. Make my heart wide enough that blessing is not a trophy of conquest, but the breath of peace I receive from you each day. I offer this prayer in the holy name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Do not forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so that together we may build a strong community of faith.